Hello, everyone. My name is Naqib Sarwary, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you today about the importance of protest. I know you are joining this event today for the Rights for Rights writing organized by Amnesty International group in your community are human rights defenders. You're the champions of human rights. You're people who have taken the time to come today to defend human rights around the globe. For people you might not know in person, but that their cause, their activism, and their inspiration has inspired you to come today and defend the human rights globally for many causes, many corners of the world. My name is Naqib Sarwary, and I'm an activist just like yourself, but I also work for Amnesty International. I mainly work from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Winded peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis people. In my capacity as an individual, I work every day towards this peace and reconciliation, both through my activism work and through my full-time job. I was invited today to give a little bit of a talk. I don't see myself in a capacity to actually be talking about this, but just sort of sharing my own personal experience about a protest or a life event that has really inspired me. It had me reflect a little bit about all the protests that I have seen, both in my lifetime, but also those not in my lifetime that I have read about in history. In my lifetime, I have really been inspired by a lot of protests that has happened. The death of George Floyd, which is an ongoing effort towards equality, towards ending racial discrimination, has truly inspired me. I have been inspired by Women's March in Washington, just as Donald Trump was being elected, and the pushback against human rights that we had witnessed at that time. And also Fridays for the Future, the work for climate activism. That is certainly something that is very much closely connected to the human rights work. It is the human rights work in reality. I've also been inspired by those in the past, the protests in the past. Let's say, for example, Martin Luther King Jr., who has fought for civil freedoms in the United States, and the people who have protested for the Berlin Wall to come down, and for people to really be reunited in a peaceful world. But also, in addition to that, what has recently been really taking my attention and really been inspiring for me is the protest of the Afghan women against the Taliban. As you know, Afghanistan had a very tragic year last year in 2021 when it was taken over by the Taliban after the international NATO forces withdraw from Afghanistan. There has been a lot of human rights pushback, and me myself being from Afghanistan, and I have come to Canada as a refugee about 5 years ago. I am very much in touch with human rights defenders back home in Afghanistan, and trying to find ways that I could support and just be of help in any way I can, because their cause is so close to my heart, both not only because it's my home country of Afghanistan, but also because the human rights violations are just tremendous there. And that has really been a source of inspiration for me to see women who come out and just stand against this really harsh and a group that doesn't know about human rights, doesn't respect it, and doesn't want to do anything about it in any way whatsoever. And the women came out on the streets, small groups or large groups, really defending for the basic survival, for their basic, very, very basic rights that almost in many parts of the world are very much taken for granted. The right to go to work, the right to go to school, the right to be able to visit a doctor when you have an emergency without somebody accompanying you, without a male companion. Those are the basic rights women are fighting for today in Afghanistan. And these protests have been happening in many parts of the country, both as a source of in social media, but also in person, people coming out on the streets, holding banners and talking against the Taliban in front of the Taliban, and being met by guns, by violence, by harsh treatment, which I'm sure if you Google, you'd probably very easily see these disturbing images online. And it makes me reflect, who really wants to get out of their really get out of their home, put their lives in danger to protect the basic rights, not only of themselves, but also the future generation. I was listening to this one lady who was in the protest, and the reporter asked, what really inspires you to come today and risk your life to protest? And she says, I have lived a terrible life, but I do not want my daughter to live this life. I want my daughter to go to school, to become an engineer as she dreams of, and to build a better future. The right to protest in many corners of the world today, luckily, has been protected by Constitution. So is in Canada, under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, has been protected the right to freedom and assembly, and is also protected the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Amnesty International is working every day towards making this a reality for a lot of the people around the world. And for us having the privilege to come together, to have these assemblies, as the gathering you have today in Edmonton, to Right for Rights, to the gathering of human rights defenders, to see what we can do around the world is really inspiring in itself. Speaking of protests, I'm sure you have attended protests as a human rights defender yourself, or have heard about them, that they are really working. There are times, well, in reality, in an ideal world, we will not have protests because the wrong things will not happen as a result. We will not have to protest. But unfortunately, there are a lot of human rights pushbacks around the world, and a lot of them need protest to make the wrong right. And that's something that we have to aspire towards every day, and that I am working towards every day, and that I hope that you are too, to defend human rights in whatever capacity that you have. Well, that would be all for me today, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for listening to me. I'm actually recording this video from an airport as I'm traveling, so please excuse any background noise or anything, and I hope that this Right for Right events goes well for you. And once again, thank you very much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to come today to protect human rights around the world, to defend human rights around the world, and to be in solidarity with human rights defenders.